Good afternoon everyone, welcome to another video. I'm Maz and today I'm in Swindon. And in today's video I will be reviewing this Porsche 718 Cayman. Before we get started, a quick overview. The Porsche Cayman is the hardtop equivalent to the Porsche Boxster, which was launched back in 1996 as a replacement to the 968 and simply attempt to making money. For those who don't know, back in the 90s Porsche was not very financially stable, and to make some money they actually hired some former Toyota engineers to engineer what was then known as the 986 Boxster as well as the Cayenne SUV, and Porsche told those former engineers to build it their way, implementing just-in-time, Kaizen and sharing parts. And that part sharing system was what made people not love the 996 911, as from the door forwards it was either the same or interchangeable. But then came the 987 Boxster, and with that a hardtop equivalent, the Cayman. Both the Boxster and the Cayman are mid-engined, whereas the 911 had its engine behind the rear axle. So in other words, the entry-level Porsche had a better layout than the flagship. And of course after the 987 came the 981, and after the 981 came the 982, along with a rename, the 718 Boxster and the 718 Cayman. So let's have a quick look around the vehicle. This is a dark blue colour, and of course there's the Porsche emblem on the front. So for those who don't know, the Porsche emblem is simply the Baden-Württemberg coat of arms with the Stuttgart coat of arms in the middle. And of course Stuttgart is where Porsche is from, and Baden-Württemberg is sort of the area that Stuttgart is in. You may notice that the bonnet is quite low. This is because this is actually the boot area, one of the boot areas of this car. Coming around here are the headlights. These look like bi-xenons to me with some LED dots surrounding it. And this particular one has some chrome washer jets, which kinda looks like an astronaut's helmet from this angle. Coming round to the side, this 982 generation Cayman is simply a 981 facelift, so very evolutionary from the previous model. This particular car has the split 5-spoke wheels with some black calipers with Porsche written on them. This particular car has two 3.5s at the front and two 6.5s at the rear, once again with a slight deep dish on the centre. Because this is a Porsche, the signature place to leave the fuel door is actually on the front driver's side wheel arch. Well, drivers in the case of right-hand drive. I'm going to give this a mention because so many people don't know this, but once you open your fuel cap you just leave it in here. Because the Cayman is a mid-engined Porsche, you get the intakes on the side which feeds it to the engine. Coming round to the back now, personally I think the Cayman has a nicer rear end than the 911. To me the roofline just slopes a little bit better, and of course the Cayman has that little lip to the end. And of course being the 718 it does have slightly nicer tail lights. And of course Porsche script with 718 Cayman underneath, and of course if this were to be a 981 this badge would not be present. Just like the 986 Boxster, in which spawned it, you get two central tailpipes. And while we're here, let's open the boot. However you open it. Turns out the Cayman does not have an exterior popper, so we'll have to go inside for that. And just like on an E46 BMW, you do get a grab handle style door handle, but it rotates upwards with the keyhole in there. So let's open that. Nice Cayman kick plates, so let's pop the boot And let's also pop the boot. So let's try that again. Not the largest luggage spaces out there, but it is fairly generous for a mid-engine car. Annoyingly, on the Cayman you cannot get access to the engine. All you get is something to open here for your coolant, and on the other side your oil. And of course you got some tether points here, 4 of them in fact, and unfortunately due to the placement of the exhaust there's no underfloor storage. And now let's open the boot, or if you're Matt Watson, the fruit. Annoyingly, this has a bonnet style system, so you have to pull a lever, which looks like this, and then it opens up. Once again, not the biggest boots out there, but it is very, very deep. And of course, because Porsche is German, there's the mandatory warning triangle with an Audi symbol in it. Once again, here at the front, here's your washer fluid, your strut towers, and your brake fluid. But other than that, nothing too special in here. Oh, and since we're here, let's just show you how deep this goes. Here's my filming bag, so fits in there perfectly. So down this goes, and it still closes like a bonnet. Now let's talk about the interior of this car. So the first shock with this particular Cayman is the seats are manually adjustable. So I have to basically pump the seat up, which does go very high if you're very short. And this particular one hasn't got a sunroof, not that most Cayman buyers will get them, but it's still going up. It's still going up. Okay, so I think that's the highest position. So let's see if it goes down. Okay, and yep, it's also manual for distance adjustment. And the steering wheel. Cannot find an adjustment. Cannot find any adjusters for the steering wheel at all. Nope, not at all. And the back. Okay, so the seat backs are electric. So yeah, that's roughly my comfort position. So now let's talk about the interior of the car. So for starters, my point of view. This is what my point of view looks like. Nice stylish steering wheel, very thick as well. This particular car has cream on the bottom and blue on the top, which is actually quite nice. It's also got the cream stitching on the blue as well. And you got the sport mode adjuster right here, which personally I think makes the car even more driver focused. Normally in Audis this symbol means favorites, but since I haven't got the key with me just yet, I'm going to guess it's the same story with this Porsche as well. And of course there's the lovely Porsche emblem. This particular car has alloy paddles, and they do move with the steering wheel. On some cars of this category they're usually fixed onto the column and are usually larger, but again that's more subjective. Some people prefer it here, some people prefer it there. And the Cayman does not have a start button to turn on. Instead you have to put in the key fob and twist it there. Interestingly, if you get a left-hand drive Porsche, the keyhole will be on the left, so that way if you do a Le Mans style entrance where you have to run to the car, get in, get belted up and then start the car, you can actually start the car and put it into gear at the same time. Not that it's quirky for this right-hand drive model, but it will be for left-hand drive. Another Porsche quirk will be that the rev counter is smack bang in the middle with two smaller dials. Well, a smaller dial and a smaller screen side by side. Interestingly, the speedo goes in increments of 25, stops at 175. For UK roads, this can be a little bit inconvenient, since 30 and 70 aren't perfectly labelled. Coming to the door, you get this really nice metal feel door releaser. I think it feels much nicer than the GT3 ones with the rag. You do get a nice grab handle here with a Bose sound system and a small cubby here and another cubby here, which reveals itself like that. Coming up here, unfortunately these sun visors do not come with the vanity mirror lights. I mean, they come with a mirror but nothing to light up. These little indentations here look like they were going to be the lights, but strange if it's an option. And of course you got somewhere to put your notes, and these are wrapped in very thin vinyl. The headlining in this particular car is the usual. This particular Cayman is a PDK, as noted here, which stands for Porsche Doppelkupplungs. So instead of using a torque converter automatic, this car uses 2 clutches. So when you change gear, it happens a lot quicker than a traditional torque converter, to the detriment of a very jerky ride in stop-start traffic. And since I opened the door a moment ago, there is the nice silhouette of the Cayman showing up. Other quirks include that this particular car has heated seats. These are actually an option on most Porsches. This car still uses a CD player. And the infotainment system is a PCM system. It does not use Audi's MMI. And while you can't get Apple CarPlay, it does not come with Android Auto. This particular car has the Sports Chrono Pack, which is this analog clock here. Digital up here with a traditional analog clock underneath. And the second hand takes top priority with an orange hand that takes up the entire area. And these seats, they're part leather and part fabric. You can get all leather seats on the Cayman as well, or you can get something that Porsche call Race Tex, which is sort of their equivalent to Alcantara. Of course, this particular car has a glove box. The reason I'm mentioning this as a quirk is because many cars of this category don't come with them. It's quite big, it's big enough for the leather wallet. You even get a USB here, so let's close that. Now let's talk about the really quirky thing about this interior. So if I press down here and here, you get not 1 but 2 cup holders. And what's interesting is that you can still put the center section back up. And of course you just extend this bit here and then leave your drinks here. One thing I don't really like is that Porsche still give you blank switches on this top end car. Yes, people prefer solid buttons in some cases, but personally I think only if the feature is standard, then it should be a physical button. Otherwise, leave the options into the infotainment. This car only has 2 seats due to the fact that this is a mid-engine car. But that being said, you do get a nice view outside and a very big parcel shelf just above the engine. Instead of having a center console cubby here, you get a place for your phone with a USB over there. And if we unveil this, it even shows an emblem showing that it's a place for your phone. One last quirk will have to be this cigarette lighter / ashtray solution. So this is the cigarette lighter here, and this is the ashtray. On the 911, the 992 generation, this is just a cubby or a cup holder. So that's the exterior and the interior of this Porsche 718 Cayman 4-cylinder. Now let's take this car for a drive. And before we get started, here's what the key looks like. It sort of resembles the silhouette of a Porsche car. And of course this goes in here on the right hand side of the car, left hand side if it's a left hand drive car. And of course, seat belt on, let's not forget that. Now the infotainment system is on. Again, it's called a PCM, so foot on the brake, and then feels like I'm starting up a car from the 1990s. Since we're in here, let's drop the window, put the sports exhaust on, and give it a rev. What's interesting is that there's a limiter at 4,000, but if I hold it, it sort of blips over to about 4.25. And for a 4-cylinder, it doesn't sound too bad at all. Obviously it's no flat 6, but a flat 4 still sounds very good compared to an inline 4. So let's get the window back up, put it into drive. Again, a very ancient style gear lever. The steering wheel is all leather, but I know you can get Race Tex on here. Like I mentioned earlier, Race Tex is their word for fake suede or Alcantara. So we're coming out of Porsche Centre now and into one of the roads, and off we go. Interestingly, being part of the VAG group, Porsche do give you a large floor-mounted accelerator as seen on BMWs and Mercs, even though Audis give you the more traditional upwards one. The reason I prefer these floor-mounted ones is that you get more feel of the accelerator. So yeah, still on normal roads for the time being. And now we're on to the M4 Junction 16 roundabout. At another red light, and the brakes on this particular car do have a lot of travel in them. They're not as snappy as many other brake pedals. I mentioned about the speedo reading in very strange increments of 25. Luckily there is a digital reader underneath the rev counter. Unfortunately we're still on a 40 zone, so I can't really take the car to its full potential just yet, but I will promise that part will come up later on. But that being said, let's see how it drives on these B roads. Okay, it's a bit freed up now, and it's now a 50 zone. Let's put the car into manual mode, see how the paddles go on this Porsche Doppelkupplungs as it's known. So push the lever to the left. To shift up you pull back, and to shift down you push forwards. Despite being a 4-cylinder, it really likes to pull. This particular car has 7 gears, one less than my ZF 8-speed in the F-Type, but it still pulls and there's still lots of revs to play with. So yeah, we're still in a 50 zone, so I can't really push the car completely. From where I'm sat, on this kind of road, it does feel very, very fun to drive. Also, may I point out, even though this is a mid-engined fastback, view outside is quite generous. And I also forgot to mention this particular car does have the backup camera fitted as well. Unfortunately, this particular car does not come with cruise control. It's an option that has not been fitted to this particular vehicle. Finally at another red light, this particular car has stop start. What's interesting is that part of that chrono pack that I mentioned earlier, you also get this drive mode selector dial, and there's a button over here which is kind of like another kick down. So let's just get onto this straight and press the button. Literally got pushed into my seat with that button. And again, this is a 2-litre 4-cylinder. And since we're here, let's put it into sport mode and use the paddles. And one thing I really appreciate about this mid-engine layout is that in this car you basically get a front row concert hall of that noise. So here we are at another straight. Brilliant. Lost for words. Here we have some turns. Come to a chicane. This car is also very, very confidence inspiring. Makes me feel more confident putting my foot down. Well, not right now because I'm in Broughton, which is a built-up area just outside Swindon. Here comes a very sharp left. Very easy to navigate. Okay, leaving Broughton now, so let's give it another push at sport mode. The road holding on this is much better than on my F-Type, even though this is also a rear-wheel drive car. So this particular car has 265 horses, which is actually a lot less than my P300 at obviously 300, but it feels quicker somehow, and the torque is also lower at around 360 odd Newton meters compared to my P300's 400 Newton meters. Okay, so we're back to the M4 junction. Haven't really mentioned much about the built-up area, but due to the shape of the car and its size, it's actually very, very manageable. Once again, Broughton, there's not really much to talk about in terms of how it drives over there. The roads over there are fairly good. And one thing I really like about the view from here is that you get a couple of contours on where the headlights would be. A very neat indication on where the front of the car is. So while we wait, we're going to test the last thing, which is how it drives on national speed limit roads. Okay, so we're about to enter the dual carriageway, so put into Sport Plus and floor it. Someone jumped in front of us. Let's try that again. It can do 70 as easily as any other car would do 30. You don't get that sense of the car going to spin out or the car running out of puff. It just feels like you can just go on and on. Oh, and yes, the acceleration is so brutal. You probably can't see this from your point of view, but the windscreen is now full of bugs. Okay, so we're now at Mannington Retail Park roundabout, so we're going to do a U-turn here and then repeat the process and then maybe do a quick 3-point turn and then finalize the video. So here we are on the roundabout, and of course, being in Swindon, those traffic lights are temporary, not temporary but part-time. And here we go. It was a little bit jerky on the roundabout, but that's just the general nature of a PDK over a torque converter. But it's so minimal that I don't really mind. So that was the national speed limit roads done now. Passes with flying colours. Let's make our way back to the dealership. Before we end this video, we're going to do a quick 3-pointer in this car park. So here we go. Reverse steering is very okay. So when in manual mode, you can't really go reverse like this. You have to go back to drive, and then that puts it back to park. So one below far Yes, this car does have a reversing camera, which I'm very, very thankful for. Otherwise, I did say the view is quite generous, but still it's not nowhere near as convenient as this camera. So let's put it back into drive, and now let's finalize the video. And of course, like a very old-fashioned traditional automatic gear selector, park is all the way forwards, and the parking brake is all the way here. So yeah, let's get out of the car and finalize this video. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me review this Porsche 718 Cayman. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you are new, ring the bell to stay up to speed, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.